right. Well, I think that was an amazing introduction, Zach. I really.
And now to the topic at hand. No.
Yeah.
I mean, that's half of the topic.
It is. It's half of what we have planned for today. Honestly, the rest of it is just a fun little game that we set up called Hot Takes.
Hot takes.
So
nice.
Yes. So we're going to ask you questions, and you're going to give us a true, a false, or an it's complicated answer. And if it's complicated, you can give us, a couple sentences on what you really think about the topic at hand.
Okay.
But
is this going to be like ESPN style where the three of us get to argue about all these things?
hey,
I mean, we could.
Yeah,
I think
let's
some
do
of
it.
these
Well,
topics could definitely get a little dicey.
Well,
They
we're 22 minutes in, and everybody's been hearing me talk for 20 of those. So I think the three conversational, talking heads should go at it. All right, here we go.
Okay, we can all give our opinion, but you can go first. You are the career professional.
It's true.
Okay, hot take number 1. LinkedIn is overrated.
False.
I'm going to go false as well.
I also agree with false, but it does depend on the profession, because I know that
Fair.
in medical and such, they have different apps for it. But
Yeah, I think it just comes back to, again, what are your interests? What are your, what are you using it for, right? If you're using it for the social side of it, then it's completely overrated. I mean, it's useless in that regard. If you're using it for just making networks and connections, great. If you're using it for job searching, great, right? I mean, whatever it's being used for in that professional way, I think it's valuable, but I definitely don't think it's overrated. I think it's underutilized by students.
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
I remember, I just had one friend who was in the College of Business. I think they do a decent job getting students to get LinkedIn. And one of my friends was like, Hannah, you don't have it already, freshman year? And they already had 500 plus connections. And I'm like, what? I still don't even have that many. I'm trying. I'm working on it. But I just made my first LinkedIn post, actually, this month, you guys. So you should be proud of me. I was harassed into it. Yay!
I like it. I love the applause thing.
I was harassed into it because, some coworkers were like, Hannah, I can't believe you haven't ever posted on LinkedIn. So it's also underutilized by me.
Yeah.
But I'm working on it.
There you go. Growth.
Proud
of you. Yeah. There you
Thank
go.
you.
All right. We're ready for the next hot take?
We are ready.
Hot takes.
Internships are just as valuable as co-ops.
Ooh. Wow. I'm going to say it's complicated.
Okay.
I think I am going to say it's complicated as well. Leaning toward false, perhaps, though.
I was about to say leaning towards false, but it is complicated leaning towards false. I think it depends on the timing. Like, if your first opportunity that you're able to get happens to be an internship, that might be what gets your foot in the door.
True.
With a co-op, but by that, typically that internship would not be with a large engineering company. It would be just experience in general. So it really depends on how you define internship too.
Exactly. So that's where it gets complicated for me, which is internships are incredibly valuable, right? From the way in which we look at it. Internships, summer specifically, co-ops, typically longer semester-based, right? Co-ops also lead to summer experiences with the same company potentially. So you can't always just say, oh, it's a summer internship versus a co-op, right? I mean, there's that variation in what it actually means and what it actually looks like. Ultimately, the thing that I talk with students about is experience matters first and foremost. The more experience you get, the better equipped you're going to be to get the kind of job you want. It's not about, to me, it's not about finding a job. Okay. For our listeners out there, the University of Kentucky College of Engineering does a fantastic job of preparing our students for the future and the work environment. And, if you want a job, you're going to get one, right, when you graduate. Mm-hmm. It's quite simple. Now, that's where it stops for me. In the simplicity of it, right? I don't want you to get a job. I don't want you to get just a normal job that really you don't have to, I'm not gonna say you don't have to work hard to get. I mean, you got to work hard obviously to graduate, but there's not a lot of effort in terms of the search process, right? I want you to get the job. And there's a dynamic difference to me in terms of the and a, right? You've got put a lot more effort into the job, understanding what that job is and how you work towards it, right? And so part of that is knowing that you got to do co-ops, right? That you got to have the longer experiences because that's what those companies are saying. That's what the companies want. It's not me just going, hey, I'm the co-op guy, so you should do a co-op. It's the companies who say, we want you to do a co-op. And in some cases, they're not going to hire you if you haven't. Mm-hmm. because they don't have to, right? And so the more opportunities you have, the better equipped you're going to be. Now, the more complicated part of that is, depending on the major, you may get really dynamic opportunities through an internship that may be considered an internship because you're still taking full-time classes during the semesters, but you're working 15 hours a week, right, in that internship throughout the entire year. So it's what we call is sort of the all year part-time kind of experience. That's an internship, right? Is that less valuable if you've done it for a year and a half than just a one co-op? Not necessarily, right? Again, it depends on the situation, depends on the person and how they view it. So, yeah, you were about. Sorry, I totally jumped over top of you. You were going to say something.
That was the exact caveat that I had in mind. Was the
Okay.
all year part time situation. If you're working an internship, then they invite you to do part time work throughout the semester. It's the length of the opportunity, right? So if you have that experience for a year, like you said, that's still as valuable, if not more valuable, than doing a co-op for 4 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say that I agree with both of those things. And also when you were pointing out that, you know, companies typically will give you co-ops before they will give you internships. So it depends how you define an internship. But if you're really gunning for one of those larger corporations that you want to work for, you're much more likely to get a co-op with them first. And that is much more likely to, hopefully in the future, land you a job. But okay, we can go to the next one.
All right.
Okay, hot take. You don't need to write thank you emails after interviews anymore.
That is false. No question.
I think we all know that that's false, but I think the point of putting it on there too was just because not everybody in our age group knows that that's a thing.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I thought it was important to bring it up.
Definitely false, though. I sent out some thank you emails last week after an interview.
That's good. I think you're right. Not everybody understands that's a thing. And there's different ways of doing it. Does it have to be an email? Not necessarily, right? I mean, there are some people who will still do the old school, like, thank you card, which is awesome, right? I mean, that takes a little while to get to them, but, like, that's awesome, like, that you've taken the time to write out a card. There are some people I've seen who have done, you know, have mastered the art of writing out a card, taking a picture of it, and then submitting that as the email to say, look, I wrote you a card, you know, in the sense that, like, I'm going to email it to you. But I think the email, it does two things. One, it obviously does the thank you, which is the appropriate thing, but it maintains that connection, right? It reminds someone that you're interested in it. And quite honestly, I've heard from numerous employers who say that was a difference maker, right? That they got that email that said, thank you so much for taking the time. It didn't offer anything more in terms of who they were, who that candidate was, or what their capabilities were. It simply showed them that they had sort of the foresight to do that, right? Or the thought process to say, thank you. I know you didn't have to interview me. Thank you for taking the time to do that.
I mean, and if it comes down to it too, if you have two candidates that are essentially equal in every way and interview the same, of course it's not just that candidate's expressing more interest in the role, which is something that companies find important, but they're just expressing that they have the kind of skills the soft skills that would be useful in the workplace that maybe engineers don't typically take into account. So definitely expresses something that companies are looking for.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was a quick one.
It was an easy one. Just
Yeah.
something that, you know, I wanted people to be reminded of. Maybe.
Absolutely. All right. So next hot take is a job you hate is better than no job at all, which you kind of touched on a little bit earlier already.
Somewhat, because you didn't say
Yeah.
no job at all.
Right.
It's true, but complicated.
Okay.
True, but complicated. Is that fair? Am I allowed to do that? Am I allowed? Okay.
You're allowed
Yeah.
to.
And here's why I say that, right? It's always easier to get a job when you're in a job, when you have a job. Right now, as a student, that is your full-time job, right? You guys work with us, so you've heard us say that before. Being a student is a full-time job, and so it's easier to get a job when you're in school, you know, instead of leaving school, finishing 6 months, 7, 8 months later, getting the job, which goes back to the experience thing, right? The more experience you get, the more likely you are to get a job prior to graduation. Okay, now that all being said, getting a job is critical if the thing that you really, really want hasn't come up, hasn't shown itself as an opportunity for you. I think because again, it's easier to get a job when you have one, because you don't have to explain anything at that point, right? If you are sitting out for a length of time, even if there are tons of really high quality reasons as to why that's the case, maybe you chose intentionally to take a gap year after graduation, or maybe you're later in your career life and you've chosen to take time away to be with family for one reason or another, right? I mean, all of those things are incredibly valid, incredibly important, and personal choices, right? Sometimes it's not personal choices. I got fired, I got laid off, I got reorganized, right? All of those choices. And sometimes it's I was just looking for a different job, right? But if you have to explain something or feel like you have to explain something, it's harder. And so being in a job is always better, one, because it also still gives you experience and it gives you money. I'm never going to argue with making a living, right? I just can't. I'm not going to do that. So I'm never going to tell somebody, hold out for management, right? You know, that old joke of like, oh, that person's holding out for management and they're not, because they've been unemployed for 7 years or whatever. So it's not that. I'm never going to advise that, but I am going to advise looking at all your options, identifying what are the best options. And if the best option or the thing you want most isn't available or isn't being offered, then take the thing that's going to get you to that next job, right? So even if it's something you're not going to like, I don't want anybody getting a job they hate. That would be terrible. That would be the worst advice, right? Take a job you're going to hate because you just need one, right? I'm not going to advise you to do that. But if it's the only option, then, I mean, if it's necessary, then yeah, it's better than nothing. But that's where the complicated part comes in.
Yeah. I would agree. Also because...
You're allowed to disagree, though.
No. Okay, to an extent. So I would agree in regards of like a full-time job, because if you're graduating college, it depends on your individual situation. But if you need to make a living, you need to make a living, and you can apply for jobs while you have a job, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like if you need to spend 1 year somewhere and then kick it, that's not a problem. I'd just say this also does apply to freshmen if you're looking for something that first summer. I think that this applies to that as well.
Oh, definitely.
And it kind of ties into the internship versus co-op conversation earlier and what an internship is defined by. Because if you're able to get an internship that's just like with a smaller company, or if you have to do research, or if you have to even just work full-time in any role, all of those things are going to kind of put you on that career path towards getting and landing that big co-op with the company of your dreams, or whatever you may be looking for.
Okay, so based on that, you guys both work at the Career Center.
Yeah.
Right? Which is why you're doing the peer review. Great job, by the way. You guys are amazing at this. Freshman walks in, okay? Freshman is in, let's say, chemical engineering.
Okay.
And says, I've got an opportunity with a construction company. Should I do it?
Yes. If that is the only opportunity on their radar, yes. Every job is a learning opportunity, so whether or not it is in your ideal field, whether or not you love the job, there are very real takeaways that you can have. You can gain a lot of transferable skills in that role, and that will help prepare you for your next job. And then kind of tying in with what you were saying about like freshmen, right? This even applies to college or high school students. So say you're in your senior year, your junior year of high school, and you're getting ready to look at colleges and things like that. Having any sort of work experience, whether that is like a part-time job. My first job was at a frozen yogurt shop, and I had some extracurriculars from school, and that ended up being the thing that helped me get my first co-op. Just learning how to talk about those experiences in a way where you highlight the skills you learned rather than what you were rather than what the job was, what the company was.
I hope there's some very specific rising seniors who watch this and listen to that.
Right.
I'm not going to mention any
I don't know
names
how likely, but
or relationships.
Oh my gosh. No, I would agree too. And like even working at a frozen yogurt shop, I had a bunch of part-time roles and jobs in college, including this. This is more applicable to engineering, clearly, because I'm working for the Department of Engineering. But I also worked in like leasing sales, at a gym, everywhere. And all of those roles gave me mostly soft skills that I found to be super useful, whether it be in an interview or in the workplace. I felt like I was able to work with difficult people more easily.
Why'd you look at me like what? When you notice that when she said that, she stared right at me like, "What the heck?"
Well, I wasn't gonna say anything.
Not gonna drop any hints, but
golly,
I was able to
this
work
was going
with Zach.
so well too.
after gaining that experience, I was able to handle Zach. Everybody feel free to drop into his office anytime and have the experience yourself. But
there you go.
yeah, so I agree. Anything like that is super useful, and it's how you spin it. So if you're at those roles, it'll teach you too kind of how to talk about yourself in a positive light. So.
Yeah. I
Good
would say
advice.
even for engineers, learning the soft skills may almost be more important than getting a role that's directly applicable to your major. And I don't mean that it's not important to learn those technical things as well, but you're going to be taught those in your classes. Right. You're not going to be taught soft skills in your classes. You're not going to be taught how to deal with difficult people, even though you may encounter some difficult people. Mm-hmm. You're not going to be taught how to communicate effectively and things like that. And so having jobs that don't necessarily apply can be a great help in building those up.
I honestly agree. Like, that cannot be emphasized enough. I'll tell you a little fun story. So my first co-op, which was mentioned in the first episode, was with Marathon Petroleum, and my previous experience was an internship in like marketing and product development with a smaller company. And I was told by the recruiter, who ended up later being my mentor, that I'm pretty sure he said that, you know, it was just cracking jokes and like having a good time at the career fair. And I think he was like, oh, you know what, she's fun, like let's interview her. Sometimes I think it could just be young professionals who are sent in there to these career fairs who are 24, 25. And all of us sophomores essentially have the same resume. Mm-hmm. I mean, we've all taken just process principles and have very similar experiences. I mean, there's outliers, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But I'm pretty sure he implied that it was just being fun and like cracking a joke that kind of set me apart in that regard. So it's something that simple that could land you your first opportunity, is being personable and like, well, we'll talk about this in the career center, and Zach and Betsy will also talk about it, but like your elevator pitch, mm-hmm. and if you're able to pitch yourself very quickly. But
yeah, I think personality matters, right? Because people always want to work with people they're going to enjoy,
right?
For the most part. You know, I mean, present company
That's why
excluded.
You hired us,
right? Exactly, right. Yeah, you didn't have a choice. You pretty much had to say hi, or yes, I mean, hi too, either way. But yeah, I think personality matters. I mean, it's not the end all be all, but like to your point about like the soft skills, there's a ton of research out there that says that those are the most important things in any job search, regardless of industry, regardless of position, regardless of area, right? But they're also the most there's the biggest gap, how do I want to say this, the biggest gap between what companies see as the importance of and what recent grads have, right? What that level of proficiency actually is. There's a huge gap in those competencies, or in at least the understanding of. Most graduates see themselves as proficient in communication and, you know, professionalism and all that. Most employers don't. They don't see that in reality, right? They say it's the most important thing. Students come out and go, yeah, I have that. And then employers go, no, you don't, you know, that kind of thing. So there's a gap in that. So I think understanding and finding ways to improve and to upskill those soft skills in whatever that is, whether that's in a project, whether that's in, you know, working at an ice cream shop, right? It doesn't matter as long as you're building those, right? Because you're right, you're going to get the technical in your classes. You're going to get the technical when you get into the co-ops and internships. Finding other places that you can build on those other things is going to be critically important.
Absolutely.
All right, last question.
Okay, last hot take for today's episode.
This is fun. I hope you all are going to listen.
We got a little off topic too.
Well, oh, what?
For good reason.
With me?
I think it all ends up.
Never.
Off topic with me? No, that doesn't happen.
Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. You should apply to as many jobs as possible, even if you're not qualified.
Okay. I'm going to say it's complicated, leaning true. And the only reason I say it's complicated versus just flat true is because I think people get into panic applying, right? They get into a situation where they're like, well, I've applied to 200 jobs, right? And I say, do you know anything about those jobs? Do you know really what you're applying to? And if the answer is yes, okay, good start. And then I say, did you tailor your resume? Did you tailor your application material to each and every one of those 200 jobs? And if the answer is yes, I say, great, apply to as many doing that process as you can. You have to get yourself in front of as many people as humanly possible, right? To give yourself as many opportunities as there is. The way the job market is right now, you have to be committed to it, right? But you also have to know what you're applying to. And so the first part of that is you should apply to as many jobs. I would rather you apply to 5 jobs very intentionally, where you're tailoring your cover letters and your resumes and your conversations, and you know exactly what it is you're applying to, right? You're utilizing their language. You're trying as hard as you can to get through that tracking system, right? The algorithms that choose those keywords and stuff from your resume. I want to know that those 5 jobs you've applied to are everything that you can, right? And yes, it takes significantly longer to do it that way, but if you can do that to 50, then do that to 50. It only takes 1, though. I mean, ultimately, it only takes 1 to get hired somewhere. But let's go back to the co-op conversation. People like yourselves who have significant co-op experience don't have to apply to 200 jobs. I mean, it's really that simple.
Or any in some cases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because your job is already going to be
They
aligned
already
for
offer
you.
it to you.
Yeah. You didn't have to apply. They said at the end of your last co-op rotation, hey, we really want you to come back. Are you interested? In some cases you say, yeah. Some cases you say no. And that's okay, right? That's a decision to make. But the option to have that choice upon ending a co-op experience, knowing that you never have to really apply to other jobs if you didn't want to, is tremendous. And that only happens through having the co-op experience.
Yeah.
And I'll say too, it's incredible because you can only get so much experience in so many different industries so easily while you're in college with
Yes.
those co-ops.
Very
I mean,
true.
that is how you rule out companies that you like working for, roles that you like being in, and it's the easiest way to do it. And the more companies that you work for, the more likely you are to get job offers from them, and then you'll have opportunities for multiple companies, usually a year in advance from what
Right.
I know. And typically you're getting a better salary considering the
Definitely.
amount of experience that you have, as well as the fact that you like know what you're in for. You're not applying to these jobs with companies that you've never heard of or never worked for. So I don't know.
There's a lot of benefits to it, right? I mean, in the hiring process, it makes a huge difference for all those reasons. I mean, even as simple as like in some cases, if you've done a year worth of co-op, they'll take that into consideration when they're putting you into the retirement system,
Right.
right?
They
or
do with vacation days even.
yeah, so all of those things can be sort of those secondary components and benefits to it, but I mean, it all matters, right? And so I think the idea of getting that kind of experience, knowing that, well, okay, now let me say this clearly first. There are other ways that employment happens without having to apply to 100 jobs, right? I mean, in some cases, the old adage of it's not what you know, it's who you know is really applicable, right? I mean, it definitely matters. And so, like, if you have contacts, people, use it, right? And I don't care if it's family members. If you got family members who own businesses or who work in industries, who have other connections, you use it, right? You use everything you can at your disposal to make the right kind of connections. And I think that's such an important component of it. But couple that with the kind of experience that you get with a co-op or multiple co-ops, I mean, you're on top of the world at that point.
Right.
So
I would agree. Do you have any more opinions on this specific hot take? I know we do spin off a few times, but I feel like it's all
The
important
last
information.
part of the sentence kind of set off alarm bells, that even if you're not qualified piece, because I think depending on the job, right? Like there are certain roles where you could maybe stretch your qualifications, like maybe, I can't think of a specific example, but if you feel like you're capable of doing what they're asking of you, even if maybe you don't have a specific certification, but you're willing to go get that certification or learn a certain software whenever you get on the job, that's totally fine.
Absolutely.
But say you are a recent graduate and you're applying to senior level positions,
Well, that's not
that's
gonna
a waste
happen.
of your time,
yeah,
right?
yeah, and I think I'm on board with you on that, right? I mean, to me there is zero reason to tell yourself no, right? And so if you don't apply to something because you don't think you're qualified, and for those who are just listening, I'm using air quotes in that regard. If you don't think you're qualified, you're telling yourself no. And so what I try to do is change people's language. Instead of qualified, are you capable, right? You used that word.
Right.
Capable is a huge word. Capability to me, is very, very different than qualification. Qualification at times is specific to what the job needs, right? I mean, but it's a level of experience. It's a level of
Something that can be gained.
mastery. Yes,
Exactly.
exactly. But it doesn't mean that just because you don't have that level of mastery yet, that you're not capable of learning it, right? And so especially for those who are looking at internships and co-ops, capability is way more important than qualification in my mind, right? This is just me. Because what I want you to do is tell someone why you're capable, or if you want to use the word, why you're qualified, right? Just because you don't have this class yet, or because you haven't mastered this skill, if you're the hardest worker in the room and you're the one who's telling them, I'm super eager to learn this. Like, I know I've got to learn this skill, or I've got to learn this component. And, and here's my plan to do that, especially if you're in the hiring process for something that's 6 months down the road, right? Think about the opportunity to walk into an interview and they say, gosh, you're not an expert at Python, right? And you say, yeah, but in the next 6 months, here are the things that I already know I'm going to do, exactly. Right? I'm going to get this credential. I'm going to get this certification. I'm going to be working on this project that's all directed at that. Well, I'm not qualified now to apply to the job, but I'm capable, or I will be capable by the time I get there, right? I've just got to have a plan. So I think I'm glad you brought that up, because I kind of forgot about that part of it. It's just an opportunity to understand that you control the narrative, right? It's how are you going to talk about what you're actually capable of doing? What are your skills? What are your abilities that match or that present in a different way to a job description? But then how do you get to that point, and how do you articulate that? So I think it's really important to understand, there are levels of qualification that you're not going to step into when you first graduate to a senior process engineer, right? But you're going to be fully capable of doing the work that it's required of a little bit lower level, just because of the nature of it's a newer position, right? So you just have to be able to say, this is what I'm capable of, versus, oh, well, it says I have to be this qualified.
Like, let me
this
just
qualifier.
give up.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And again, why tell yourself no? I always tell people, make somebody else tell you no.
Right. Other people are more than willing to. So
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I
Yeah.
like it.
There you go.
Okay. Well, that was our last hot take. Maybe we can split it up into 2 sections. Zach's intro and then the hot takes.
I did tell you that it was probably going to be a little bit longer than you were expecting.
That's all right. There was some great advice in there, some
Exactly.
amazing conversations. So.
Well, you guys just make it super easy to chat.
I mean, this is essentially what we do at work.
Right. It's literally
well.
why you
What are you
hired us.
talking about? We're like super serious at work.
Yeah. No, if you want to have a very serious, like, no
Stop
joking
listening
job,
now if you want to stay.
no joking job, be a career peer, because
There's no
smiling in there.
there is no time for
No.
that.
There's
No.
zero tolerance for fun.
Exactly.
What does Buddy the Elf say? Smiling's my favorite.
Exactly.
Exactly. So
And I'm not sure, did we might not have introduced ourselves at the beginning of this episode,
I
but
don't think we did.
as a reminder, my name is Hannah Whaley. I'm a recent graduate from the University of Kentucky in chemical engineering.
And my name is Jessica Howard. I am a rising 5th-year senior in chemical engineering.
And we were both career peers. Jessica will continue to be a career peer. As of right now, I'm a part-time employee / career peer until I leave forever.
I miss you very dearly.
Thank you for the sound effect.
yeah.
We need the soundboard.
Maybe I'll just come back just for this.
There you go.
Fly back to Lexington.
Yeah.
Just
I'd
hang out.
love to have you on a podcast next year.
I
Yes.
know. I can call in if we can figure that out.
Right. We'll figure that out.
All
Okay.
right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in again today to the Peer Review Podcast. We are signing off.
We're very happy to have you. Have a good day.
See you soon.